give you glory for all you brought me through. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. I'm moving forward to follow after you. And now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. In every season, your grace has been enough, and I'm believing the best is yet to come. The cross before me, my hope on things above, and in you, Jesus, the best is yet to come. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise and it won't stop now. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before.
Hey, welcome to Prairie Lakes Church. I'm Cody, the digital pastor here, and I'll get to the box here in a minute. But before anything else, we need you to hear that we're a no-matter church. And what that means is no matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, or even what's been done to you, we need you to hear that God loves you. He really does, and you can go on the journey here with us. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to clean yourself up to be here. We're just really glad that you're here. And while we're a no-matter church, it does matter that you don't stay stuck. So maybe you're joining us today and you've been attending anonymously, or you're checking us out for the first time and you're just feeling a little stuck. Well, the right next step for you might to become known. To let us know who you are by filling out our welcome card. And if you take that step here today, I'll send you an Amazon gift card just as a thank you. So all you need to do, it takes about 30 seconds to fill that out, is right now, here in this moment, text PLC to 99581 and fill out the short form there. So the box that I'm holding is for Jingle Jam. So many of you might have participated last year. It is a Christmas party big enough for the whole family, and we do it intentionally early so we avoid the busyness of our holiday season. But on December 4th, we have a live stream event paired with this box. So everything you need to participate is in this box for the live stream event on December 4th, and I want to get one of these to you so your family can participate. And all you need to do to get one is to let us know where to send it. And you can do that by texting JINGLE to 99581 and we'll get one sent to you. And the next step that we take is giving generously. And when you give to Prairie Lakes Church, you partner with us in changing lives. You fuel our ministry. It allows us to have events like Jingle Jam, where 1,200 families across the state are going to be participating together on December 4th. So if you want to give right now, you can do so at prairielakes.org/give. You can select your campus from the drop-down. We're going to continue in our final weekend from our leadership series, so let's kick to today's message.
Hey everybody, welcome to Prairie Lakes Church this weekend. I'm delighted that you are here, whether you're at one of our physical locations or our online campus spread all across Iowa and beyond. We are one church on many corners, and we're really, really glad that you're here. And I want to start this weekend with a brief acknowledgement. I know some of you are joining us today for the first time, and some of you don't even consider yourself a follower of Jesus. You're like, I'm not a Christian yet. And that's great. We're really, really glad that you're here. And your weekend host already said it. We're a no matter church, okay? And maybe you joined us this weekend because somebody invited you to church, or maybe you saw on social media that a church is talking about leadership and it piqued your interest and you're here. My encouragement to you today, if that's you, is just relax, okay? You're here for a purpose and God's got you here for a reason. So just relax and enjoy. All right, hey, let's dive in. This weekend we are in week 3 and our final weekend of a series called When Leadership Feels Like a 4-Letter Word. And here's what we know, friends, leadership is difficult. It's tough to lead others. It often feels like a burden, like a 4-letter word. And there's a lot of 4-letter words that I shouldn't say. The worst one begins with S, and it's snow, okay? And snow is coming soon. The flakes are going to fly, ready or not. It's going to be Christmas here before we even know it. And here's the thing, at Prairie Lakes Church, here's what we believe. We believe that success often rises and falls on leadership. And so we want to help all of us get better as leaders and lead more effectively, because we know and believe that when leaders get better, families get better, teams get better, businesses get better, churches get better, nonprofits get better. We believe that leadership helps organizations rise or fall. And so we want to help you be more effective leaders. And we believe the Bible has some things to say about leadership. And so during the series, we kicked it off week 1 by talking about vision. Being a leader that helps define where we're going and how we get there. Then last week we talked about margin, being a leader that has margin in your life, that doesn't lead from the end of your rope, because those types of leaders aren't leading well. We want to be leaders with margin. Now this weekend we're going to talk about this topic: how do we lead others? How do we lead others well? Which often really does feel like a 4-letter word, because leading others is complicated and messy and it's frustrating at times. But before we dive into talking about leading others, I want to just remind you that we got a resource page on our website that's really, really good. Here's where you go to find it. You can go to the webpage, or you can text in. We got a lot of resources on there about leading with vision, about having margin in your life, about leading others. And there's some tools I'm going to talk about this weekend that we're going to post there that are really, really good and are going to help you in your leadership. So I want to encourage you, no matter how you lead, check that out, okay? It's going to be a blessing to you. So here's the thing, I'm 43, and increasingly I'm finding myself as one of the older people around tables, which is kind of weird. But throughout my life, I've been a leader. I've often been team captain in sports in middle school, high school, and college. I've often been the person that people in a group look to speak for the group or to lead the group project, which is always fun, as you know, if you've been in that spot before. And so I've got a lot of experience as a leader throughout my life, either because of choice or voice. I was put in leadership positions. And whenever a leader stands up to speak about leadership, there's always a danger. And here's the danger. I don't know it all. And I know it's probably a shock to you today that I don't know everything there is to know about leadership. And more than that, as a leader, there's a lot of times in my leadership where I've made mistakes. And I've kind of blown it. And there's some ways in leadership that I regret that I led. And so I just need you to hear me this weekend. I'm not a leadership guru. I'm not an expert. I'm just a leader who's a fellow traveler with you that can tell you some things not to do, and I'm going to share some of those, and then to give you some principles that I've learned that have really helped and encouraged me as a leader, that have really moved my leadership forward quickly. And so I'm going to share some of those things with you this weekend. But here's where I want to start. I want to start by defining what leading others is all about. Here's the big idea this weekend. Leading others is using the influence that you have to help others around you get better. That's what leading others is all about. It's about using the influence that's been given to you, the platform that you've got, to help others around you get better and improve. And that's true if you're a supervisor at work. That's true if you're a coach of athletes. It's true if you're on a board or you lead a nonprofit. It's true if you're a parent. Your job is to use the influence you've been given to help others around you get better, which means that you have to accept the responsibility to ensure that those that you lead grow in health and performance, that it's your job as the leader to make sure that happens. And all of this means that leadership is really about sacrifice. It requires that you dedicate time and energy to develop and coach others and maximize their potential. And that's difficult because it'd be really easy just to focus on your work, your performance, your goals, your metrics, but good leaders recognize the value of pouring into others and investing in them. Now here's my hot take this weekend. You ready? Bold statement. Jesus is the greatest leader to ever walk the face of the earth. I know, shocking that a pastor would say that. Some of you are like, well, you're a pastor, but you have to say that, which is true. But listen, I've been led by Jesus most of my life. And I've been continually amazed by his vision, his grace, his wisdom, his courage, and his leadership. And I've enjoyed the leadership of Jesus. And so I'm going to share with you this weekend 3 principles about leadership that I believe to be true, that I think are going to help you. I'm going to illustrate how Jesus lived that principle out, and then I'm going to give you some really practical ways to do that leadership principle, okay? So we're going to get real practical this weekend. So if you're taking notes, I want you to jot stuff down. You can take pictures of your screen, but if you're a leader, I really want to encourage you to learn this stuff and get it down this weekend. So here's where we start. 3 principles for leading others. Here's the first one. Leading others requires you to lead yourself well first. I'm going to say it again. Leading others requires you to lead yourself well first. And some of you right now are like, oh, come on. Like, I want to talk about them and fixing the people I lead and helping the people I lead. And I don't want to talk about me. But listen, if you're a leader, it starts with you. You have to lead yourself well first before you can really focus on leading other people well. Because as the leader, you set the tone. As a parent, as a coach, as a business owner, as a supervisor of others, you set the tone. Your example and your self-leadership dictates how you lead others. And let's be honest, leaders, how you show up matters. If you're on time, if you're prepared, if you're operating at your best more often than not, if you're clear and courageous and trustworthy and full of integrity, because we all want to be led by leaders that possess those qualities. So here's a question I've got for you this weekend. No matter how you lead, no matter how you influence others, here's the question. If everyone in your workplace led themselves the way that you do, what type of environment would that create? In your home, your family, in your nonprofit, as a coach to athletes, or as an employee, if everybody showed up the way you show up, what kind of environment would that create? Because your answer to that question really does determine how well you're leading yourself right now in this moment. See, so many of us, we want authority and we want power and we want to lead others, but we don't want to lead by example. It's really easy to bark orders and tell people what to do and boss people around. It's a whole nother thing to model what good self-leadership looks like. And our job is to lead by example. Listen, As a leader, if you can't say to others, follow me, follow my example, you've already misfired as a leader and you lack integrity. Self-leadership matters first. In fact, Jesus was a master at this. Jesus was the greatest leader to ever walk this earth, and here's how he showed up: with integrity. He lived out integrity. He said what he meant and he did what he said. He wasn't frazzled. He didn't show up with anything less than his best. He showed up by being present. He listened. He was courageous. He modeled faith. He modeled leadership. And he practically modeled what he wanted his disciples to do. And he sacrificed as a leader for others. And because he did all those things, he was able to say, follow me. Look what it says in Luke chapter 9. Jesus said this. He said to all of them, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. And then he says, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it. Jesus says, follow me. Follow my example. Do what I am doing. Follow my lead. And then not too long after that, Paul, a man who wrote most of the letters of the New Testament and who'd been following Jesus and was planting churches and leading thousands of people, here's what he said in 1 Corinthians 11:1. After he's giving them all these instructions about how to do life in church, he says this: follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Paul says, don't just listen to what I'm teaching you. Observe how I'm leading. Follow my lead. That is what self-leadership is all about. Because here's the deal, friends. Titles are given, but respect is earned. Titles are given, but respect is earned. Are you gaining respect by the way that you are leading yourself in the way that you influence other people around you? So here's the question this weekend. How do we lead ourselves well first? What do we do practically? 3 things, okay? First, healthy personal rhythms. Are you a leader that is growing in physical, spiritual, and emotional health? Are you taking steps to grow as a leader? Are you physically getting rest? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you modeling that well for the people that you lead? Are you emotionally healthy? Are you growing in emotional health? Are you always anxious? Are you always insecure? Or are you processing through those things as a leader so that when you show up, you present your best self to others? And are you growing spiritually? Are you letting God empower the way that you lead others? Healthy personal rhythms determine how you show up as a leader, and they absolutely matter. The second one is this. Hey, model the behavior that you want to see in others. If you want a punctual, prepared team, be punctual and prepared. If you want your team to empower others and delegate responsibility and authority, you better be doing that too. If you model the behavior you want to see in others, you set the tone for your organization, and you have integrity when you ask others to do the same. And then lastly, demonstrate bold humility. As a leader, one of the things that makes you the most worthy of following is when you are bold and humble, both at the same time. At the same time, and when I say bold, here's what I mean, that as a leader, you have courage. You have courage to honestly assess where you are, but also courage to say, here's where we're going to go. You've got boldness to cast vision. You've got boldness to believe your team can achieve more than they ever have before. You have boldness to face adversity. But boldness inspires, but so does humility. And here's what humility looks like as a leader in your life. It's the ability to say these 2 things. I'm sorry, and I was wrong. How many times do we as leaders in pride refuse to say, I'm sorry or I was wrong? But humility as a leader says, I'm going to say those things. Humility says, as a leader, I don't always have to go with my ideas or my strategies. Humility as a leader says, I'm going to hire people around me that are smarter and better than me to lead because I need that. Humility says, I'm going to think of others before myself. Bold humility. My friends, when you live out these 3 things as a leader, you have integrity and you're a leader worthy of following. And before we talk about leading others and the tips of leading others and how to do that practically, it starts with us as the leader. We have to lead ourselves well. So about 2 years ago, I invited Pastor Jesse to do some strategic evaluation of my campus and my staff team. And so for 2 entire days, we spent time evaluating how are we doing, where are we at, and here's what was revealed. That me as a leader, the campus pastor, the leader of my campus, I was not leading well. I was not showing up at my best. I had let my physical rhythm slide. I'd let some of my emotional rhythm slide. I was holding on to too much authority, and I wasn't delegating and empowering my team enough. And it was difficult for me to hear that. I think it was probably difficult for them to say that, but we spent 3 hours, 3 hours, it was so difficult, holding up mirrors to my leadership and pointing out a lot of the ways that I was failing as a leader. And it was really, really difficult. But let me tell you, friends, having those mirrors in my life have helped me get better as a leader. And the last 2 years, my leadership trajectory is going up and to the right because people had the courage to say, here's what I'm seeing in you. Here's how you're not showing up in ways that you need to. And it changed the way that I empowered my team, and it's made a huge difference in my leadership. And so I just want to encourage you, leaders, it starts with the way that you lead first. Do not be afraid to evaluate how you're doing. That's number one. It starts with you. Here's the second principle of leadership that I want to walk you through. Leading others requires proximity to and clarity with those you lead. Proximity to and clarity with those you lead. When I say proximity to those you lead, here's what I mean. You need time with and awareness of the people you lead. Are you aware of their strengths and their growth edges? Are you aware of what's most important to them and what they need from you in a supervisor or a parent or a leader? Are you celebrating successes and wins with the people that you lead? If you're going to lead others, you have to know them well. There has to be proximity to them. And when I say clarity, here's what I mean. Those you lead need to know what you think of them and their performance. They need to know their value to you and their value to the family, the company, or the team. They need to know what winning in their role looks like and how to get there. And they especially need to know how their role contributes to the overall picture or vision of your company or your team or your family. You have to provide that necessary clarity. And listen, 2,000 years ago, Jesus led with proximity and clarity. If you want to talk about the proximity of Jesus, look no further than his 12 disciples. Jesus chose 12 young men, most of them teenagers, to camp with in the Middle East for 3.5 years. Think about that. For 1,300 days, Jesus, the first youth pastor on the face of the earth, traveled with them. He slept, he ate, he laughed, he cried, he coached, he taught. He led these 12 disciples day in and day out for 1,300 days, which means he knew all their strengths, he knew all their weaknesses, he knew all their sin patterns, and he knew how each and every disciple contributed to the team, to the whole, and to the kingdom of God. He led with incredible proximity. But Jesus also led with clarity. He described what he wanted, and he taught his guys how to live out the instructions that he wanted them to live out. He didn't just say, go reach people. Look what he says in Matthew chapter 10. I love this passage. It says, Jesus called his 12 disciples to him, and he gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and heal every sickness and disease. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. So he sends these guys out after he taught them what to do. He sends them out, and here's what he says. Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, proclaim this message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you've received, now freely give. Do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts. No bag for the journey or extra shirt or sandals or a staff, for the worker is worth his keep. Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. As you enter the house, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it's not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Jesus was incredibly clear. He told these 12 disciples, he didn't just say, hey, go reach people, go do what I've done. He gives them specific instructions on where to go, who to talk to, what to say, what to bring, where to stay, how long to stay. Like, he was very, very clear. And listen, Jesus only did ministry for 3.5 years. And he just lived for just over 30 years. And Matthew, in his 28 chapters, spends 10 verses on this. You say, why is this in the Bible? Why is this here? I think part of it is that Matthew wants to communicate Jesus was very clear with his disciples. He gave very clear directions, very clear instructions. He didn't just say go. He said, here's where I want you to go, what I want you to do, how I want you to speak, and when I want you to leave. He was very, very clear. Jesus led with proximity and he led with clarity. If we're going to be good leaders, if we're going to lead people well, we have to lead with proximity and with clarity. And here are 2 ways to do that today, okay? If you're a leader, grab a hold of these 2 things that are very, very helpful. The first is effective one-on-one meetings. The second is effective team meetings. These are crucial to you if you lead others, particularly if you supervise other people in a work environment. And there's a great tool on our website for each one of those that I want you to check out on that web page. But listen, effective one-on-one meetings with people that you lead bring proximity and clarity. They develop trust with the people that you lead. You're able to gain clarity, empower them. You're able to delegate responsibility and authority. You're able to talk about performance, struggles, areas of growth, and really learn what's important to the people that you lead. A couple months ago, I had a woman who approached me and she said, hey, I need to talk to you about some things that are going on with me at work. And so I met with her, and as we were talking and praying about what she had going on, she just said, hey, I've got this issue with my supervisor, and there's these dynamics at work, and as a Christian, I don't know how to navigate them. And so I looked at her and I said, hey, when you meet with your supervisor one-on-one, are you able to talk about these things and these issues? And she looked at me like I was from the moon. And I said, what's going on? And she said, the only time I talk to my supervisor is during my annual review or when he comes into my office to tell me I've done things wrong. And I was like, woof. And my heart broke for her because that's not good leadership. That's not effective leadership of others. I said, so you don't meet with your supervisor one-on-one? There's no time like that? And she said, no, he doesn't have time for me. No proximity and no clarity. But effective one-on-ones bring proximity and clarity. And if you lead others, here's how to effectively do one-on-one meetings, okay? Here's some tips. First, be consistent. You don't have to meet every week for an hour, but you do need to meet regularly and consistently with the people that you lead one-on-one. It's very, very important that you're consistent. Second, use a meeting template and share it with them. They need to know what you're going to ask them and what you expect of them and what they need to bring into that one-on-one meeting. With the people I lead on my staff, I have a template. They know it. It's published. We walk through the thing every single time that we meet because that helps them prepare. And it helps me not forget to cover certain things that are really, really important when we do our one-on-one meetings. Third, let the employee drive the meeting. Here's how I start the meetings with the people that I lead. I say this, hey, what's on your list today? Or what do you want to cover? And I let them drive. Yes, there's things that I want to talk about, but I defer to them and say, hey, you're driving here. You drive the agenda. And a lot of times they come with a lot of things, but sometimes they say, I don't really have much going on. Well, as a leader, I dig into that too. What's going on? What's behind that? And then lastly, take notes. When you take notes as a leader and you write things down or you type things up that people are saying that you lead, it demonstrates care and concern and value. This is how you lead effective one-on-one meetings. So I want to encourage you, if you're not doing these, do them. If you're already doing them, start jumping into some of these tips because it'll really, really help you lead people with proximity and clarity more effectively. And listen, this is not just for business leaders. This is for parents. So my son Xavier's in college now, but in middle school and high school, they had late start on Monday mornings. And so every Monday morning for almost 6 years, my son and I would go grab breakfast together. And we'd have a one-on-one, just me and him. And parents, this is really important if you've got a lot of kids. One-on-one time with each of your kids is so valuable. And we talk about God and girls, and we'd read the Bible, and we'd pray, and we talk about sports and school. But there was proximity and clarity that my son and I had, and I am forever grateful for those times. One-on-ones matter, not just for employees, but for family members as well. Now, when it comes to team meetings, if you lead others, listen, if you do one-on-ones poorly, it impacts that relationship. But if you do meetings poorly, it impacts everybody in the room. At your campus right now, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever been in a team meeting where you sat there and you thought, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what my contribution is, and I don't know what we're trying to accomplish in this meeting. Raise your hand right now at your campus if you've been in that spot. Yeah, same. I've been in that spot before, and I've led those meetings before, and I don't ever want to lead those meetings again. So if you're a leader of others and you have team meetings, here's my encouragement to you, some best practices. Every meeting needs to have a clear purpose. Be very clear about why you're meeting. If you lead a weekly staff meeting, be clear as to what the purpose of that meeting is. If there's not a purpose for the meeting, for goodness sake, don't meet. There's nothing worse than a meeting that has no purpose, okay? Second, every meeting agenda is available to all the members before the meeting. Put it on a cloud-based format so everybody can see it before the meeting, or email it out to everybody. That way, people show up to the meeting prepared and ready and not cold and disconnected. You're way more efficient in a meeting setting when they know what's coming and they know what's going to be talked about. And then lastly, hey, every agenda item in a meeting is labeled one of three things: inform, discuss, or decide, do. Every bullet, everything you do in a team meeting should be either we're going to inform people, we're going to discuss something, or we're going to land a decision and drive to action and assign that decision to people in the room. So many times in team meetings, we get lost because we're trying to make a decision, but people don't know that. And so we're just discussing and discussing and discussing, and we never land the plane. When you start assigning bullets in team meetings to discuss, inform, or decide to do, it really does clarify the way that you lead as a leader. Listen, as a leader, proximity and clarity determine how you lead. And the people that you lead, no matter what your context is, they need those things. As leaders, we need to lead with proximity and clarity like Jesus did. And here's the third and final principle I want to walk through. You ready? Leading others requires that you navigate difficult conversations well. And some of you are already slumping in your chair because you're like, oh no. Like I was on with the first two, but difficult conversations are not something I want to do or not something that I do well. And if you're in that spot, I get you. I understand, okay? And we've all been there as leaders before where we need to have a corrective conversation with somebody that we lead, an employee that is performing poorly, an employee that we need to let go. We need to confront a coworker about some inappropriate comments that they made, or we need to say some difficult things to our child based on things they've been doing at school. Or, hey, we need to set boundaries with our in-laws. And it's like, I don't even want to think about having that conversation right now. So these are all called crucial conversations. And here's what a crucial conversation is about. There's three elements, right? And we can feel these coming sometimes. There's high stakes. The issue at hand is really high impact. Like this could determine their employment. It could determine their future. It could determine a financial decision, right? Or there's also differing opinions in a crucial conversation where you expect the person that's going to sit across from you to disagree with you. And there's strong emotions. You might feel anger, anxiety, fear, worry, insecurity, and you just go, there's a lot going on. So this is a crucial conversation. Now here's what you need to know about crucial conversations. They're moments of disproportionate influence. They're moments that oftentimes we look back on as people and go, I've got some wounds, I've got some scars from a crucial conversation that did not go well. But when they're executed well and effectively, they are a multiplier. They lead to greater clarity and proximity and growth. And so there's a lot at stake with these crucial conversations. And I think we intuitively know that. Now here's the thing. When it comes to having these conversations, all of us fall into one of two camps. We either fight or we flight from these. And you know who you are. You know your default. Some of you like to fight. A crucial conversation needs to be had. There's high stakes, there's strong emotions, there's differing of opinions, and here's what you do. You fight. You go, well, I'm going to have this conversation. I'm going to sit them down right now. I'm going to tell them what they need to know. And you just like to railroad people. That is not the best approach. Others of you like to flight. You're like, crucial conversation? Nah, I don't think I really need to have that. Or it's not that bad. Or I'm going to have somebody else have that conversation rather than me. Because as a leader, I want to just kind of steer away from that. And listen, I'm in that boat. I call myself a recovering people pleaser, and I'm learning over time to not care so much about what people think, but it's hard. So when crucial conversations come up, man, I want to flight, I want to run away because I don't want to hurt the relationship. And I'm often afraid that's going to happen. And some of you can relate. The goal in crucial conversations is not to fight or flight, but it's to flow. To flow through conflict, to flow through these conversations as a leader in a way that is courageous and honest, but also grace-filled. And there's a book that we list on our resource page by Joseph Grandy called Crucial Conversations. There's a video on there that is gold. So if you struggle with this, I encourage you, grab a hold of those. You will not regret it. Now, not surprisingly, Jesus was a master at crucial conversations, and here's why. Here's what John 1:14 says about Jesus. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. And we've seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Father, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Jesus was 100% grace and 100% truth. He was not 50-50. He didn't have to balance the two. Jesus was perfectly gracious and he told the truth. And he did it over and over and over and over again. Whether it was Peter multiple times that he had to have these crucial conversations with, or Mary or Martha, or the woman at the well, or the woman caught in adultery, or Nicodemus, Jesus navigated the difficult conversations well with grace and truth. Not either or, but both. Jesus navigated conversations with grace and truth in a way that allowed him as a leader to be heard and to be received by others. And that's the goal, to flow through conflict, to flow through crucial conversations with grace and with truth. So how do we do that well? As a leader, how do we navigate these difficult circumstances and conversations well? First, view them as an opportunity for growth. Don't fight, don't flight, but view them as an opportunity for growth. Here's the thing. We get to these difficult conversations and oftentimes we think I've either got to tell the truth or keep the relationship, right? I've got to tell the truth or keep a friend. And that's a lie, because you can have both by speaking grace and truth, by viewing it as an opportunity not to ruin things, but as an opportunity for growth, proximity, clarity, and growth. The second is this: prepare for them. When I say prepare for them, here's what I mean. Manage your emotions. Because often we think about the crucial conversation and it's like, I'm anxious, I'm balled up, I'm stressed out, I fear the worst. If that's where you're operating, you have to manage that before you have the conversation. Otherwise, you're going to bring that into the conversation and it's not going to be helpful. And the other way you prepare is to take some notes, jot down some bullets and say, here are the things I need to say, the order I want to say them, and rehearse. I don't know how many times I've been in my office or a car rehearsing a crucial conversation, and the people looking at me are probably like, that dude's lost his thinking mind. But it helps to prepare for these. And then, hey, lead with mutual concern and purpose. When I begin a crucial conversation, I often say a couple things like this: hey, I care about you, and I want what's best for you as a leader. So, right? Mutual concern and purpose. Or, hey, I know we both want what's best for our church. And so, because that diffuses tension, that lets them know that you care about them, right? That's how I begin these. And then lastly, say 100% of what needs to be said and keep it behavioral. So often in crucial conversations, here's my tendency. I want to say about 80% of what I need to say because I don't want to hurt the person. I don't want to push them away. I give them what I think they can handle. And here's what happens when I do that. We leave on opposite ends of the spectrum without clarity, because I didn't say all I needed to say, they didn't hear all they needed to hear, and then I have to have another crucial conversation later. So say it all, okay? Please say it all when you need to. And keep it behavioral. Here's what I mean by that. Don't say things like this: I feel like you don't care about your job. What does that even mean, right? Instead, you can say this: behavioral. Hey, I've documented the last 2 weeks you've been late to work 4 times. And that just demonstrates a lack of care and concern for your job and the people around you. That's behavioral. When you keep it behavioral, it is really, really easier to receive, because you can say, here's what I've documented, here's what I've observed. My friends, one of the best gifts that you can give your team or individuals on your team as a leader is the ability to navigate crucial conversations well, the courage to actually have them, and then walking through the best practices of doing that well. Again, friends, use the leadership resources on our page. They are gold, and they have really helped transform my leadership. My friends, leading others is difficult, but man, is it worth it. Deciding to accept the challenge and the responsibility for the health and performance of others always requires boldness and self-sacrifice. And listen, as you lead others, whether it's your kids, your nonprofit board, your athletes, or in your business, leading others well requires that you lead yourself well first. It requires that you have proximity to and clarity with those you lead. And it requires that you navigate the difficult conversations well. And boy, do we need God's help to do that well.
Thanks for that message, Pastor Chip. And maybe you want to take a step here today to grow in how you lead others. And we have some resources curated at our leadership page that I would love to share with you. So all you need to do right now is to text LEADER to 99581. And if you go to our leadership resource page, you'll see a section called Leading Others. We have some resources that we would love for you to dive into here this week. But one of the things that we get to do as Christians, as those who have stepped over the faith line, is to partake in communion together. And in communion, we get to both look back and look forward. We get to look back on what Jesus did for us on the cross, and we get to look forward to what is promised ahead, life eternal with Him. So if you've stepped across the faith line, I just encourage you to partake in this meal together. So in Jesus' Last Supper with His disciples, He took the bread, and He said, "This bread represents my body, which will be broken for you." And it was. His body was beaten. He was put on a cross. His body was broken for you and for me. So let's eat in remembrance. In the same way, he took the cup. He said, "This is the new covenant in my blood, which will be shed for you." And it was. So let's drink in remembrance. Let's pray. God, we thank you so much for this day, for this picture, this reminder of what you did for us. So God, help us to cherish that, treasure that. And God, we just pray that you use that to encourage us and to strengthen us in our faith as we leave here today. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you all so much for joining us for this leadership series. It was so great to spend this time with you. Kids, you are up next. Children's programming is about ready to begin. So we'll see you back next week.
God, I know you're always near. So even in the dark, I will not fear. I know the storms will come. I know I'm not alone. You are my strength, so I will say, you make me brave, you give me courage. I won't be afraid, I won't even worry. 'Cause you've got the whole world in your hands. You fight for me, you help me stand. You make me brave, you give me courage. You give me courage, courage. Oh God, you always bring me peace. You are a fortress around me. Even when my heart breaks, even when there is pain, you will be my strength, so I will say, you make me brave, you give me courage. I won't be afraid, I won't even worry. 'Cause you've got the whole world in your hands. You fight for me, you help me stand. You make me brave, you give me courage. You give me courage, courage. I can do all things through Jesus, my Savior, who gives me strength every day, strength and courage. I can do all things through Jesus, my Savior, who gives me strength every day, strength and courage. You make me brave, you give me courage. I won't be afraid, I won't even worry. 'Cause you've got the whole world in your hands. You fight for me, you help me stand. You make me brave, you
Welcome to Story Lab. This week, we're talking about courage, while we take a look at the story of a kid who landed a giant job. Oh, and we're also gonna be doing this. Hey, I'm Skylar.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're talking about courage, which is being brave enough to do what you should do, even when you're afraid.
Yeah, like when you're trying something brand new.
I got something new.
A belt.
Nope, it's a slingshot.
No, that's not a slingshot.
Of course it is.
I used to make slingshots with sticks and rubber bands.
This kind of slingshot is sometimes called a shepherd's sling.
Oh, you're talking about David and Goliath.
Spoiler alert! Today's Bible story is about David and Goliath.
I've always wondered how David could knock out a giant with one stone.
Well, check this out.
Some ancient armies had slingers who could shoot stones over 60 miles an hour up to 400 meters. They were sometimes faster and more deadly than arrows.
I'm sorry, I misjudged you, slingshot bow. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad.
Oh, and get this. Sometimes the slingers would write insults on their stones before shooting them. Archaeologists have dug up stones that read, "Take this, victory, catch." Oh, and wait for it. Ouch.
Oh, for reals?
I did not make that up.
So how does this thing work?
This is the cradle, and these are the retention cords. The sling acts as an extension of your arm. And when you place a stone in and spin it, the sling multiplies the force of your throw.
We gotta try this out.
Let's do it! Okay, you see that target?
Yeah.
Can you see through the guide?
I can see.
Okay, one of us is gonna hit that target. None of us are leaving here until one of us hits that target.
We're gonna be here for a while.
I'm gonna hit it.
She's not gonna hit it.
Okay, don't try this at home.
We're in a professional story lab.
True. Okay, first, you're gonna take your index finger and you're gonna put it through the loop.
Okay, I got it.
Got it? Okay. Then you're gonna grab onto this retention cord.
Okay.
Make sure you hold on tight. Then you're gonna place your stone in, and then you're gonna swing with a bunch of momentum from an underhand arc.
All right.
Once enough momentum is built, you're gonna release the retention cord.
All right.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Hey, that was pretty close.
Hey, let me go. Let me go.
You go first.
Let me go.
Okay.
I'm gonna try the figure eight.
Or not. Way harder than it looks.
I mean, David had all day, every day to practice in the fields.
Which reminds me, it's time for...
The story before the story.
Today, we're in the 9th book of the Old Testament, 1 Samuel.
God promised to bless the whole world through Abraham's family, the Israelites.
God delivered them from slavery and led them through the desert to freedom in the land of Canaan.
But the Israelites were like a yo-yo. They'd run to God and turn away from God. Run to God, turn away from God.
Instead of trusting God to lead them, they begged for a king like the nations around them. And God gave them a king, Saul.
But Saul turned his back on what God wanted too.
Which is where our story starts.
Take it away.
Hey, Erica.
Hey, everyone! At this time, one of the ways God spoke to the people was through a priest. The high priest Samuel had loved and listened to God since he was a young boy, and he was deeply saddened when he saw that King Saul was ignoring God. But God spoke to Samuel.
I am sending you to Jesse in Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king.
So Samuel was in a tricky position. Saul could have Samuel killed for anointing a new king, but Samuel chose to be brave and do exactly as God had told him. Samuel traveled to Bethlehem, where Jesse lived with his sons. The first son, Eliab, was tall and handsome and definitely looked like king material. And Samuel thought to himself,
"Oh, this has to be the one the Lord wants me to anoint for him."
But God had something super important to say to Samuel. Do not consider how handsome or tall he is. I have not chosen him. People look at the outside of a person, but the Lord looks at what's in his heart. Jesse had 6 other sons stand right in front of Samuel, but even though they looked pretty kingly, God made it clear to Samuel.
Well, God hasn't chosen them either. Are these the only sons you have?
Well, my youngest son is taking care of the sheep.
Well, okay, I'll send for him.
So, of course, Jesse sent for his youngest son, David. And when David showed up, well, he looked and smelled like he'd been hanging out with, well, a bunch of sheep. But God was looking at David's heart instead of his haircut. He told Samuel,
Get up and anoint him. This is the one.
So Samuel poured oil on David's head, a special sign that God had chosen him to be the next king of Israel. Okay, now, just to be clear, David was not king yet. In fact, Saul didn't even know there was a new king waiting in the wings. He was busy leading the nation, and later trying to fight off a Philistine invasion. And the Philistines had a secret weapon, a warrior more than 9 feet tall, named Goliath.
Choose one of your men. Have him come face me to decide this war. I dare you.
Obviously, the Israelites were terrified! For 40 days in a row, they cowered behind the battle line as Goliath repeated his dare. Now, David's brothers were part of Saul's army. And after all this time, their dad wanted to make sure they were okay. So, Jesse told David to leave the sheep behind and take some food to his brothers. David arrived just in time to hear Goliath's challenge.
Come and fight me. I dare you.
Right away, David turned the men around him.
He's bringing shame on Israel and trash-talking God. Someone has to fight him.
Word got back to King Saul that this kid was asking about Goliath. So Saul sent for David.
Don't let anyone lose hope because of this Philistine. I'll go out and fight him.
You're too young.
When I'm taking care of my father's sheep, sometimes a wild animal attacks. I go after it to save the sheep. I've killed a lion and a bear. God saved me from them, and he'll save me from this Philistine.
Go. May the Lord be with you.
At first, Saul wanted David to wear his own armor. But it was super heavy, and David wasn't used to it. So David shrugged it off and went and found 5 smooth stones from the stream instead.
Come and fight me!
This time, when Goliath made his challenge, David stepped forward. The warrior mocked him.
Come over here. I'll feed you to the wild animals.
You come against me with a sword, but I come against you in the name of the Lord. He'll give me victory over you.
As Goliath moved to attack, David raced forward. He took one of those stones, fit it in his sling, and spun it with all his might. The stone sliced through the air and hit Goliath squarely on the head. Ow. The giant swayed and fell to the ground, dead. When the Philistines saw their hero was dead, they panicked and ran. The Israelites chased them until their whole army scattered. And Saul was so impressed with David, he invited him to come and live at the palace. The end.
That story gives me the chills, no matter how many times I hear it. I mean, how did David have the guts to do that?
Well, David had gotten in the habit of talking to God every day and asking for God's help to protect the sheep.
So when he came up against something that seemed impossible,
He had practice. He was ready.
so what's our part in this story?
Now, I don't think any of us will meet a 9-foot-tall giant soon, but you probably are going to face something that feels big and impossible.
Maybe someone you know is sick. You're super nervous about visiting them, but you can encourage them and show them God's love, even when things feel dark.
Or maybe your giant is PE. I have a friend who hates running. She was gonna pretend to be sick on the day she had to run a mile in PE.
What happened?
Well, we talked to God about it together, and she got out there and ran.
Wow. Yep. You don't have to do the impossible alone. Jesus went up against the biggest, scariest thing of all, death, and he defeated it. God raised Jesus from the dead, and when we believe in Jesus, we get to face our fears with the very same power that raised Jesus back to life. All right, you guys, I'll see you next time.
Bye, Erica. So here's the thing. You can do what you should, even when things seem impossible.
Like actually trying to hit the target with this thing.
We looked a little weird.
Yes, we did. Want to try again?
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us in the Story Lab. See you next time.